everybody, I'm Liberty Vittert, Senior Data Scientist here at Decision Desk HQ. I'm here to take you through our latest polling averages in the key battleground states ahead of the 2024 presidential election between incumbent Democratic President Joe Biden and former Republican President Donald Trump. Let's jump right in. "538 electoral votes are up for grabs on the 2024 Electoral College map. 270 is the magic number needed to win the presidency. Most states are not considered to be competitive this November. In fact, the presidential map is as narrow as it has ever been, with as few as 7 states considered to be truly in play. These are Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina across the Sun Belt, and then Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin up in the Rust Belt. All 7 were decided by less than 3 percentage points in 2020. Joe Biden won them all except for North Carolina after Trump had swept them all in 2016, with the exception of Nevada. The rest of the states on this map here have been placed into qualitative race rating categories based upon the 2020 election margins. Safe states were won by either candidate by more than 10 percentage points, likely between 7 to 10, and lean between 3 to 7. We generated polling averages in 10 of these less competitive states, but each of the average currently shows the 2020 winner in the lead as of now. We'll be sure to let you know if that changes over the coming months. In today's video and in the future editions of this series, we're going to be focusing on these 7 states marked down as toss-ups for now. These are the 7 states we expect the Biden and Trump campaigns to direct most of their resources to over the coming months. Joe Biden holds a narrow electoral college vote advantage with 226 to Donald Trump's 219, with the 93 electoral votes here in the middle of the electoral college counter almost certainly to decide the election's outcome. So without further ado, let's get things started with Nevada. Republicans are in a better position to flip the silver state than they have been in over 2 decades. Trump lost Nevada by 2.4% to Clinton and by the same margin to Joe Biden in 2020, meaning that the state actually shifted to the right relative to the nation as Biden won the national popular vote by a larger margin than Clinton. In 2022, the GOP also flipped the governor's office and won the popular vote for the U.S. House for the first time in decades. These pro-Republican trends have carried into 2024, as according to our latest average of 28 polls, Trump currently leads Biden by 3.3% based on the 34 polls in Nevada, a lead he has held since last October. That being said, this is a much narrower margin than in our last polling averages update video, in which Trump led by 6.8%. This comes after 3 out of the last 5 polls showed Biden tied or ahead of Trump. It's also worth noting that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has claimed ballot access in Nevada. DGHQ has not yet confirmed his status with state officials in Nevada, but our full field average shows Trump lead only grows with more candidates in the mix. He leads Biden and Kennedy by 4.6% based on 21 polls. Biden has not led in a single one of these full field surveys dating all the way back to last October, when RFK dropped out of the Democratic primary to run as an independent. Going back over to our electoral college map, we can place Nevada down as Trump leads by 3.3% and 4.6% in the 2 averages, which both fall into that rating category. Just to the southeast of Nevada, we have Arizona, the second closest contest in the 2020 election. Biden narrowly carried the Grand Canyon state by 0.3% with a raw vote margin of less than 11,000 votes. This marked only the second time that Arizona had voted Democratic at the presidential level since 1952. Since 2018, Democrats have secured 4 consecutive federal victories here: presidency in 2020, Senate races in 2018, 2020, and 2022. Additionally, they flipped the governor's office in 2022. However, recent polling again shows Trump with a consistent lead. The margin is actually exactly the same right now as what we saw in Nevada, at Trump plus 3.3 based on 46 polls. Again, this is cut almost in half from the advantage Trump held the last time we looked at this average in Arizona. Biden still has not led in a single survey since last June, but the last 6 polls have had the margin within 5 points between the 2 candidates. Kennedy has not yet qualified for the ballot in Arizona, widely regarded as the most challenging of these core swing states for ballot access. However, there is still a good chance he'll meet the petition threshold by the mid-August deadline. So taking a look at our full field advantage here, we see Trump leading by a very similar margin to the head-to-head contest, 3.6% based on 28 polls. Trump holds 42% over Biden's 38.4% and Kennedy's 9.2%. Again, both averages fall in the lean Republican category, so going back over to the map, we'll place it down as such. Moving across the Sun Belt to southeast in Georgia, the closest state in the 2020 election, Biden became the first Democrat to carry the peach state since Bill Clinton in 1992, winning by a margin of 0.2%, approximately 12,000 votes. Arizona and Georgia exhibited remarkably similar voting patterns in that election and have shown comparable trends over the last decade. Since the 2012 presidential election, where Mitt Romney defeated Barack Obama by 9 points in Arizona and 8 points in Georgia, these states have experienced the third and fifth strongest pro-Democratic shifts relative to the national popular vote. Looking ahead to 2024, Trump enjoys his widest margin of lead in the head-to-head contest thus far at 4.5% based upon 37 polls. Again, we see a narrowing trend in Georgia as Trump had led by 6.1% in our last update video. The last 3 surveys added to the average each showed Trump leading by 3 points or less, so all within the margin of error. RFK has not yet qualified for the ballot in Georgia, but when expanding the average to include all non-major party candidates, Trump's lead increases slightly to 5.1%, with Kennedy currently garnering 8.6% here in Georgia. Like in Arizona, this average has remained stable throughout the cycle. So returning to the map, Georgia will likely follow Arizona's trend as a lean Republican state. Turning to North Carolina, the most Republican of the 7 toss-up states in 2020, Trump carried the Tar Heel state by 1.3% in 2020, following a 3.7-point victory over Hillary Clinton in 2016. It is the only one of these 7 battleground states that Trump won in both elections, and it has consistently voted Republican in the last 7 federal contests. Notably, all 7 of these contests were decided by less than 6 percentage points. So while North Carolina has a consistent Republican tint to it, it's remained a perennial competitive purplish state for about a decade now. If there's one state on the 2024 map that the Biden campaign could realistically target to expand their electoral coalition, it would be North Carolina. Otherwise, the re-election campaign is mostly on the defensive across the battlegrounds. Trump's lead in North Carolina comes in around the middle of the averages across the Sun Belt at 3.9% based upon 36 polls. Trump has consistently led by about 4 to 6 points in this average since January, although it's important to note that Republicans have tended to outperform polls here in recent years. For instance, Hillary Clinton led in most 2016 election polls, trailing Trump by less than a point in Real Clear Politics' final average, only to lose by almost 4 points. Similarly, in 2020, Biden led in 538's final average by almost 2 points before losing by 1.5. This trend isn't unique to Trump either. In the concurrent 2020 Senate election, Democrat Cal Cunningham led in nearly every poll over Republican incumbent Thom Tillis, yet lost by 2%. Expanding the view to include all candidates in our full field average for 2024, Trump's lead slightly increases by about 1.5 points, up to 5.3% based on 27 polls. This is significant because RFK has claimed ballot access in North Carolina, where he currently is polling an average of 8.8%. It appears that at least for now, he is drawing more support away from Biden here, but regardless, North Carolina joins the rest of these Sunbelt battlegrounds as a lean Republican state. This leaves us with our all-important and electorally infamous Rust Belt trio of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. A trio because they have voted in tandem with one another in 8 consecutive presidential elections, backing Democrats in all but one of those cycles. Trump swept all 3 in a surprise sweep in 2016 before Biden returned them into the Democratic column in 2020. They were each decided by less than 3 percentage points in either direction in both elections. Had Hillary Clinton fended off Trump in just these 3 states in 2016, she would have been elected president, while Trump never would have assumed office. Yet again in 2020, had Trump held them in his corner over Biden, he would be serving a second term right now, and we would be having a very different election update. In terms of polling for 2024, Biden has consistently looked more competitive in these 3 states. That's important because even if Trump sweeps all 4 battlegrounds across the Sun Belt, Biden would still have a shot at securing a second term in the Oval Office with a sweep of the Rust Belt. According to the latest averages, Biden trails Trump by a slim margin of 0.1% in Wisconsin, with Trump receiving 47.5% across 35 polls to Biden's 47.4%. That extremely narrow margin has remained consistent since mid-March, with Trump's lead never exceeding 3 points. Notably, Biden has led or been tied with Trump in 4 of the last 5 polls added to the average, an intriguing turnaround considering that Trump had led in the previous 4. RFK is not yet qualified in Wisconsin, but when including him and the rest of the candidates of the full field of candidates, this polling margin narrows even further to a dead heat tie. Trump and Biden both at 41.3% and Kennedy at 9%. Neither candidate has led the other by more than 2 points in over 2 months. Given the closeness of this race, Wisconsin remains firmly in the toss-up category. Over in Michigan, Trump's lead has narrowed significantly down to just 1.3%, now based upon 50 polls, positioning him at exactly 48.5% compared to Biden's 47.2%. This is the closest this average has been since mid-April, and before that, last August. Biden and Trump have each led in 2 of the last 4 polls added to this average, as you're starting to see more pro-Biden results come out of these samples in Michigan. Fundamentally speaking, Michigan is the bluest of the 7 battleground states, having voted for Biden by 2.8% in 2020. It's voted to the left of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania since 1992, and Democrats have had a string of strong electoral victories down the ballot since 2016. Michigan is only one of the 5 states where DDHQ is confirmed with the Secretary of State's office that Kennedy will appear on the ballot this November. And taking a look at the full field average, we see the margin narrow down to less than half a point. 0.4% based upon 30 polls. Trump holds 42.7%, Biden 42.3%, and Kennedy 6.8%. Looking at the trendline graph here, you can see Biden has consistently narrowed the gap here over the last several months, culminating in this 0.4% margin, the narrowest we've seen since last November. Now, going back to the map, Michigan also remains a toss-up state, with both averages showing Trump ahead by margins very much within the margin of error. Finally, let's turn to Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, which in name and practice may be the most important state in the 2024 election cycle. It holds the largest prize among the key battlegrounds with 19 electoral votes. While Trump carried Pennsylvania by 0.7% in 2016, Biden swung it back into the Democratic column with a 1.2% victory in 2020. Historically, Pennsylvania has leaned Democratic, especially in non-presidential statewide elections. Since the start of the 21st century, Republicans have won only 4 of 20 contests for president, senate, and governor. Looking ahead to 2024, we see another narrow margin in Trump's favor, leading Biden by 1.5% based on 52 polls. Notably, Pennsylvania is the only battleground state where Biden has led at some point in the cycle, according to our head-to-head average. It was fluctuating back and forth throughout March and April before Trump began to consistently lead starting in May. The former president has now led in 8 of the last 9 polls. Contrary to Wisconsin and Michigan, however, Trump's lead slightly increased to 1.7% in our full field average. Here he holds 42.7% compared to Biden's 41% and Kennedy's 8.4%. Kennedy has not yet secured ballot access in Pennsylvania, although the signature threshold is much lower than in states like Arizona and Georgia. Returning to the electoral map, Pennsylvania also remains in the toss-up category since neither head-to-head nor full field average shows Trump leading by more than 3 points. This far out from Election Day, polling average margins of around 1 to 2 percentage points are very much within the margin of error. So that completes this rendition of the 2024 battleground map based upon Decision Desk HQ and the Hill polling averages. Trump leads in the race to 270 electoral votes, closely approaching the threshold with 260 electoral votes to Biden's 226. 44 decisive electoral votes in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania remain in the toss-up category for now. That is all for this Decision Desk HQ video. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave your thoughts, comments, and reactions in the comments below. Make sure to click that like button if you did indeed like it, and subscribe to the channel down below if you haven't already. Also, check out more content from our channel, and I will be here next week.